to talk with Richard Williams, who joins us here in studio. Hello.
Hello, Pierce. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
I
How are
want to
you
thank you
doing?
so much for having me here.
Well, it's nice to have you here in
To be
Toronto.
on your show is to become a big timer. Now I feel like a big timer. Forget that.
I think you were a big time before you
Yeah.
landed here. I want to first just say congratulations on this book. And I want to ask you about your decision to tell your story now. Why did it feel like the right time?
Actually, that's a great question. Serena had been pushing me to put my book out. My son had been pushing me to put my book out. And I thought it would be a great time to tell people about me because I think people had the wrong conception, idea about me. And I thought this would be a great time. And so about 2 years ago, we started putting the material back together to put it out.
Okay, we'll talk about the views that people have about you and the misconceptions, as you say, in a bit. But I mean, you are famous in the tennis world. I can't think of a tennis parent that's more famous than you, and not just only because of your extraordinary daughters, but your own story, which is really where I want to begin our conversation. As I mentioned, you grew up poor, very poor, in Louisiana. You faced extreme violence and racism. When you set out to write this book, and over the past 2 years writing it, I mean, was it painful to relive some of those memories?
Some things were so painful I wouldn't write about it. Some of it was very joyful. I would say about 80% of it was very joyful because whatever took place in my life, my mom taught me that whatever I expected from myself, that's what I could be. And I always expected to be well off. But it never looked like I'm going to be well off because, as you say, I picked cotton. And I used to pick some cotton, so I remember periods that at times didn't look like I was going to ever get out of a cotton field. It was so far. And what's interesting about that was that cotton made me who I am today.
What do you mean by that?
See, I don't know how much you read the book or anyone read it, but the book on black and white and Richard Williams, that is, cotton taught me to steal, and I was a great thief during my days. I became a thief because of my best friend at that time, Lil Man, was killed. So I took off where he left off from. And in the process of Lil Man getting killed, he was killed by some white people, and they said that it was Ku Klux Klan, from what I understand. And during those days, they would take out what is called a axe or a hatchet and chop your hands from your wrist and run chicken wire and hang them up on the fence. And they tied his nose behind him and hung him. So I thought I would take up from what he did and be a little smarter and a little wiser. And that's what taught me to start writing better plans of life. And from those plans, I've been writing plans ever since. So the cotton fields made me really a great person.
Your book, I mean, delves in to the extent of racism. Can you just share a story from that time to give people an idea of the depth of racism that you faced?
I faced racism to the point that I got beat up by the time I was 5 or 5.5 years old, but I'd been taught better. But I guess I went against what I had been taught. In those days, you could never put money into what they call the Caucasian or the white people's hands. So I'd put the money in the guy's hand. He said, "You nigger," and he jumped on me and beat me up and threw me out in the streets. Well,
White man
yes,
beating up a young black boy.
yes, 5 or 5.5. Well, that was the first time I ever seen my dad take off running. And I didn't know he could run so fast, but he left me there. So I had to learn to run myself, and I did. And so that was one of the episodes there that you might look at. And black people have always been a persona non grata, I think, in the South, especially South, where I came from. I was told once that the guy was picking cotton for Mr. Joseph. He said, "I'm not going to pay this boy because this boy didn't do nothing but ride on your sack." He told my mom. And I said to myself, "I'm going to get my pay. He may not pay me, but I'm going to get it." So I got my pay. But in the process of getting the pay, I guess one of the white farmers that he had two of them, shared with him that I came and stole his cotton. And he was going to make a great example of me. So the next day when I was in the field, he came up on this big horse riding with a whip. And I had prepared myself. So when I threw the snake on the horse threw him off and stepped on him. But I couldn't go back to his field no longer. So those are some of the things I experimented that I thought was humongous.
You were determined to make a better life for yourself. You moved to Chicago, later to California. You work your way up. Why are you laughing?
In Chicago, I wanted to go to Chicago so bad because I was so tired of being called names, jumped on, and having to run so fast, and sometimes, getting killed almost, and house set on fire. I thought I went to Chicago, it'd be different. And my mom told me, she said, son, I don't care where you go, it's going to be the same for you. You have to learn to expect things from yourself, not what people's going to do to you. And she taught me that I had to be rough, I had to be tough, and I had to be strong. Just no matter where you go, it's going to be the same. I couldn't see that. But when I went to Chicago, it was worse Chicago than Shreveport, Louisiana. And so that's why I was laughing. I never thought Chicago would be that way from the things I had been told about Chicago.
So you moved to Chicago and then later to California. And all this time, you're working your way up in a number of jobs and businesses. And you talked about the wisdom that your mother passed on to you. Is that where your ambition and motivation and drive came from? Or where does that all come from in
From
you?
my mom. My mom taught me that. She said, baby, we as women, sometimes we forget to think, or we just don't think. She said, but when we start thinking, we're the best thinkers in the world. It doesn't matter what problem we have, we're always able to think our way out of it. She said, always watch me and watch any woman see how they perform. And she's right. A woman can think their way out of anything. And that's what made me who I am today. It's because of my mom taught me about how women can think. And she said, now you stay a man now, because we had what we call sisters down there. I guess they call them something. Said, don't become that, but you just think like a woman. I guarantee you'll be ahead. And she was right. A woman can think so well until actually it's frightening. And so that's how I managed to be so successful, obeying my mom and watching other women.
Your ambition for yourself and your family, I mean, you had such strong ambitions for your children. You write in your book that you had a plan to train your daughters, your two daughters, to be tennis stars even before Venus and Serena were born. And I mean, where does that idea come from?
Let me tell you something here. I remember one of the girls so bad until someone said to me, well, how you know you're not going to have a boy? I said, oh, no, that'll never happen. I'm having a girl. And I did have a girl, too. But here's the catch to it. My wife one day went to had a baby at Linwood Hospital, California, Los Angeles. And while she was there, she didn't have a baby, but had to take her home. And the next day I went back with her. It seemed like every day she had to go, but no baby. Well, one day I was sitting there and I started screaming and yelling as loud as I could yell. And so the doctor came out and said, don't get too excited. She hasn't had the baby yet. But I wasn't excited. I was scared simply because I realized I didn't want Venus to have the same problems that I had in the system there in America. So on the way home, my wife said, some fools out there yelling real loud. Did you see who it was? I wouldn't say anything. But I made myself a promise I'll never be afraid again. So yes, I planned their careers long before they were born. I started planning the Venus career of money-wise before I could pay her way through tennis. And I planned her education also. I planned it everything. I wrote a 42-page plan, an 86-page plan. I could have been an 84-page plan, then a 107-page plan. But I wrote everything.
And why tennis?
At that time, I had seen a girl, I didn't know her name then. Her name is Virginia Rizik now. And she had won the tournament. I understood that she won $40,000 for 4 days. So I said, if I had 2 kids, I'd become rich. So
Really, that was your motivation. You thought tennis, because I can get rich off
that was
what
my
my daughter.
actual motivation. And I think a lot of the people in the tennis world tried to get me not to say that, but my mom told me to tell the truth. And that's why I did that. But as we went along and watched tennis, I realized that not only did I have the wrong concept, I had the right educational plan and everything else, but the wrong concept trying to make it on someone else. And I started saying, I'm going to make it on my own.
Well, I mean, it's so astonishing. I mean, you had no previous experience
No.
with tennis. Did you ever pick up a racket
No,
before?
matter of
Okay.
fact, where I come from, you couldn't pick a racket up.
Okay. You set out to teach first yourself the game,
Yeah.
and then you start training Venus and Serena when they're old enough. The money might have been a motivation, but I mean, what gave you the confidence to think, I've never played this game. I can pick up a racket and I can teach my daughters, not only teach them, but make them potentially the best in the world?
If you watch women's, and I'm sure you have being a woman, women can do anything. I mean, there's nothing they cannot do. And I've seen women do things that no one thought they could do. But they always are. They're the greatest achievers on the earth. So I decided that one day I wasn't going to allow no one to teach them because I didn't know what they would teach, but I knew what I would teach. So I taught myself how to play tennis, where I could teach them. That wasn't the hardest part. That was easy. The hardest part was the establishment of tennis. Because when I came through with tennis, I wanted them to hit with what is called an open stand. And tennis had never done open stands before. So they said, this guy's a nut. This guy's crazy. This guy's a controversy. But one thing for certain, you weren't going to change my mind because my mom taught me, once you make a decision, if you stand by it, you can make it good. So I wasn't about to change my mind.
I hear what you're saying and the plan and the potential and all that. But, when people look at their children, when I look at my children, I'm trying to spot their potential. I'm trying to see if there's something special in the kids to which they can grow and become really good at. What did you see in you must have seen something in your daughters that they had what it took to be champions.
They had another choice. Because see, if you look at any child, it doesn't matter what child it is, whether it's Canada, America, England, it doesn't make a difference. That child almost is that home. Whatever they're taught in that home, almost is what that child going to be. Home, school, church, and let's say relatives. That is the child. So I had to make sure the relatives were strong. Because if weak relatives, weak kid. Weak home, weak kid. Weak schools, weak kid. So everything had to be perfect almost around them. So that's why they didn't have hardly no friends. We had to make the family the friends. We had to cut out everything that would stop them from being where they was. And that's how I knew they would make it.
But was there a moment where you looked at your daughters and you knew for sure that they were going to be great at
Yes,
tennis?
I did. Yeah.
What was that
The
moment?
very moment they were born. I remember, I remember when Venus was born. The nurse was, I'm sorry, but I said, I'm taking her home. She said, no, you can't take that baby home. I said, I'm going to take this child home. And about 4 minutes, security was around me. You put that child down right now. And they wasn't joking. And I said, when can I get my baby? Wait 2 or 3 days, you can take her. But when I got Venus on the first day, I took her out to take pictures, tried to put a racket in her hand, and a book. And it must have worked because Venus is 34, and she's been in school almost 30 years. And I knew she'd be a champion because if you look at most people that could afford tennis, I don't think they wanted their kids to become a tennis champion. It was a few of them. Most of the parents want their kids to be governor, president, big lawyers, and so on, or doctors. And the poor people like me, that's black, that in the ghetto, they would love to have a child tennis player. They didn't have the money or the patience to do it, no plan. So we had no other choice but to be there. And I knew we would be because I looked at a lot of different neighborhoods and so on. I looked at a lot of places that had invited us over. This is after Venus became super good. And I said, no, it's too weak for us. No, I knew they would make it.
Through all this, as you're growing and grooming your girls, I mean, did you ever worry that pushing Venus and Serena to be tennis stars might have a negative impact on your relationship with them in the future? For example, if they hadn't been so successful, did you ever worry about that?
Oh, no. I knew my relationship was going to be great. The way I knew it, because my relationship with my mom, see, there was time I thought my mom was too hard, too. But she was right. And so I had Venus and Serena to learn how to make decisions at an early age. I did things that was unthinkable for a father or anyone. Let me give you an example. I remember when Venus was 2 years old, she had her first job delivering phone books. Now, it's hard for a 2-year-old to pick up a phone book. That's the first step. So they have a little, the one about this thick, maybe about 2 inches. Then they had a little small, and they would have to deliver those from door to door. I want them to learn that it's it's your responsibility to help me to take care of you. And that worked out well from that day to this day. They have been working. But I wasn't concerned about what the kid was being away from me and not loving me. When you give a child a great deal of love and responsibility, that child is gonna love you. One short story don't have nothing to do with this. I'd like to share it with you. I seen a guy coming along, worked in a country, and he worked a whole year to buy one racket and hardly had food to eat. He was so skinny, it was ridiculous. That same child went on to become a professional tennis player. His name is Andrei Chesnokot out of Russia. I was on the right track.
You write in your book, and it picks up on what you just said. That I'm quoting here: "We're too soft on ourselves and our kids. We don't demand excellence."
Yes. I heard a lady one time say something I never forgotten. She said, "My daughter is rough and tough as a man, and my son, he's weaker than an old woman about to die." And I could never figure it out. So when I asked my mom about it, she said, "Why don't you think about it and see how it would fit you? And if you ever have kids, it would fit your kids." And I understand she's meant that when I got much older. Lots of times we don't prepare ourselves. Instead of preparing ourselves, we perpetuate ourselves. I'll do this if I like it. You better learn to do what you dislike. You better learn to do as most women would do. Just keep going and won't stop. And if you do, you will be successful. I wasn't about to stop.
I have to say, before you walked into the studio, I was a little bit nervous. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen you on TV. You're a pretty intimidating
Oh, yeah.
and imposing guy.
Without a doubt.
I'm,
I
I'm,
remember a dog one time. I scared a big, huge dog one time. The guy had a dog. He said, "Don't come in the yard. The dog will bite." I said, "Do you know where the dog gonna bite me at?" He said, "What?" So I started walking in the yard, and the dog kept growling. So I said, "Dog, come in." I ran and charged the dog. Dog took off. I scare anyone, but it's the
You're making me nervous again.
it's what do you expect out of yourself? See, if you expect the dog to scare you, you have a problem. If you expect to be stopped, you're going to be stopped. Before we left California, we came to Florida the third week of September 1981. They had a commercial about a highway patrolman, and it said, "This person was right." They was dead right. I'd rather be alive and keep going than to be dead right. The catch of life is that whatever you're doing, if you're doing something worthwhile doing, people fear you.
I want to ask something that's been said about you, a story that's often told about you in the media, and that is that you use tennis to help Venus and Serena and the rest of your family escape the ghetto. But you actually contradict that in the book, and you say that you moved to Compton deliberately. That is not what most people would do.
No.
I mean, why'd
Matter
you
of
do
fact, the
that?
wife I had then, she was upset. "I'm not going to move over in that ghetto." Well, she didn't know about Compton, so when I showed it to her, she seen young guys shooting each other and selling drugs and prostitutes. She said, "Oh, no, I'm not moving over there." I said, "You don't have to just come visit if you want." I'm not, and the kids not going to move. I said, "I'm not worried about those kids." I moved over there. She took Venus, Serena, and the 3 kids she had before I met her and moved to Michigan. That's how Serena got born, in Michigan. She said, "I refused to do that." But see, it doesn't matter what someone else does. To catch what I was taught, what do you expect from yourself? If you stand up and live the life that you should live, you can be a president like Obama. You can be like Mr. Reagan. You can do anything you want to do. You can be like Churchill. But if you give in to anything and fear, your life was wasted.
Except you moved. You moved to gang-ridden Compton.
Mm-hmm.
Did Did you ever worry that you're putting your kids at risk?
Oh no,
No,
no. Matter of fact,
I don't understand that.
we moved from a place called Belmont Show in Long Beach. It was about a block from the beach. See, if you whatever you put in your child is what they are. If you put in your child that they are the best, they believe it and they will be the best.
Bullets don't discriminate, and you moved your
Bullets not
children.
gonna shoot no one. People that get used to get shot by bullets, it's usually those, if you notice, are running away from it. Most people that are shot by a bullet, that's not the one that's standing still. It's those who running away from the bullet every time, or backing away. We weren't worried about black people shooting us. They didn't shoot us. The gang members are the same one that came to help us. We had people over in Compton like Snoop Dogg, Eazy-E, and other people that were doing great jobs. There's going to always be someone willing to move forward into the future. Would I be one? Would Venus Serena be one? We had another choice but to be one. I remember Venus one day, I got beat up by 3 or 4 guys. She went home and told her mom, I said, but Daddy can really fight. He beat up 3 or 4 guys, Mom. And I was thinking, I got my nose broke, my ribs broke. What fight was you watching? You know? But no, they weren't brought up with fear. And it's a good thing that they wasn't. Because if they were brought up with fear, Serena would have lost her match in Indian Well. That's the greatest neighborhood I've ever seen in the world. And I've seen a lot of places in the world. Indian Well, probably the richest neighborhood, without a doubt, in America. $7 and $8 million chandeliers hanging outside. And those people acted like I shouldn't be there. That's the ghetto as far as I was concerned, not Compton.
I want to get back to tennis in a way. It's an understatement to say that tennis is a white-dominated sport. When your family came onto the scene, I mean, remind us of the reception that you got when Venus and Serena entered the professional tennis world.
No, we didn't get a reception. We brought the reception. I had Richard Dent, a professional football player, about 6'7", playing for the football out of San Francisco. We had other people there. Venus was surrounded. Matter of fact, you couldn't see Venus in the crowd that she was in. It was about 10 of us. And anyone that was in the way got stepped on. And I remember the lady from Sports Illustrated, she had to run out the way and she wrote a bad story. I believe that people make a decision on you with first impression. And our first impression was, we're here to stay. And that's where we are today.
But, you know, I guess in hindsight, you can say that. But along the way, you describe a number of incidents of racist abuse during tournaments. Obviously, I mean, we can all hear it. You instilled this strong work ethic and to believe in yourself and your daughters. But being hurled racism repeatedly, which is what you say happened, I mean, how did you and your family cope?
It wasn't nothing to deal with. That was easy. See, nothing is difficult unless you're allowed to be to you. If you could have seen some of the people I've seen got a rope around their neck and dragged through the south to their head separated from the body, that was difficult. But to sit out there and someone saying something, no, you can't stop us. If you feel that people cannot stop you, that attitude radiates like heat on a highway, and people can see it. And that's how we got to be where we are. No one that want to mess with us. Matter of fact, I seen girls run off the court because they was afraid they were going to get hit. That was their business. Our business was to win. So as far as prejudice, you couldn't get no one then or now to talk about tennis as prejudice because they was afraid to. I talked to 2 different psychiatrists. I spoke to people at UCLA, USC, Loyola Marymount, Westchester, and they would share with you that it would be impossible not to face prejudice of people of different race and ages. But you don't have to wait for people to admit things. All you need to do is admit to yourself what's true and move accordingly. United States Army say, keep moving forward. That's what we did.
You talked about this. I'm not saying anything new here when I say you have been a controversial figure in the tennis world. You've been criticized for making outrageous remarks, accused of match fixing, deciding which sister will win a particular tournament when they're playing against one another. You've said of Venus and Serena that they would never be being accepted by tennis. And I want to quote you. This is what you said once. If you get some little white, no good trash in America like
I
Tracy
said that in
Austin or
India
Chris
and Chris
Evert,
Everett.
you cannot hit the ball. They will claim this is great.
And they will.
You
And
stand by those words?
yes, I yet stand by them. That's what they did. If you watch his tennis out of history, until they could tell me how good they could play. But when Venus came out there hitting the ball that hard, and no one legs could keep up with the ball, and serving the way she served, naturally people would say what they said. They didn't want to see that, but they had another choice but to see it.
But why for a man who grew up with such racism and saw his daughters fight against similar racism? Oh, I mean, why choose those words? Little white no good trasher in America.
Well, I think that what I live by what people allow me to live by at one time. Today I live by what I want to live by. And if I was called trash, why can't I repeat the same word? I was called worse than trash. So if I had used the word that I was called, then maybe I might say, okay, maybe that was wrong. I don't see nothing wrong with what I said, little white trash. And that's what I felt they was then, and I yet might feel the same way to this day, simply because of what I was called. See, I didn't start the tennis junk. They the one started it, but they thought that by starting it, that they could keep us down. You can keep us down. You can't keep us away. So I would strongly say to them that if you don't want me to call you little white trash, don't pick at me and don't pick at my kids. Like the same thing you probably would do if someone picked at your little son or your daughter. Maybe you might not say nothing, but you wouldn't go back. Yes?
Why not? Why not try and
It's
change
a
the
hell of a
environment?
thing. No, I can't change an environment that's prejudiced before I came to America. America yet is the same way. That's why we have so many problems. Little black boys and girls getting shot and killed right now, simply because people haven't stepped up to do nothing about it. Everyone is saying it's okay. No, it's not okay. If I see trash, I'm going to call it trash. I was taught to tell the truth, and that's exactly what I do, and I have no fear of nothing.
And
And that little son I have, he won't have any either.
and given that you're so outspoken, do
I
you?
wouldn't say I'm out that outspoken. I've seen people call me the worst names in the world that I don't hear you commenting about right now. Did you read the story at Indian Wells when Serena, what they called me and what they did? Well, let's talk about that now. I was called niggers and everything else. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how Venus never did anything at all what she was called. Let's talk about Charles Passarelli, the tournament owner there, what he did and how he lied. I said the right thing then. I say it now. And I don't back down.
You certainly don't.
No, not at all. That's no need. My mom didn't teach me to back down. Mom taught me that I was a man. She said, you're a child, but one day you'll be a man. And as a man, if you say it, don't back away.
Well, I'm not going to back down either. I want to continue our conversation, and I want to ask you this.
I want to know why you didn't ask me the question about Indian Wells, what they did, 15,300 people, what they called us and what they tried to do. You talking about what I did as one person. Now, let me tell you who lived in Indian Wells, who had everything. Some of the richest people in the United States lived there. They didn't say anything. Matter of fact, they participated. We talking about people that didn't drive a Rolls Royce, they drove Duesenbergs at that time, cost $800,000 and $900,000. If those people can call me names, what you see wrong with what I did? Not you, but anyone. I did the right thing.
Let me ask you this: of the things that people have said about you, what bothers you most? What have people gotten wrong about Richard Williams?
Nothing. Because my mom taught me if I allow things that people say or do to bother me, she said, you'll never be a man. She said, a man can take anything, walk through it, make his comment, and never look back and go on to more success. And that's what I've done. My mom, I'm my mom's child. My mom is my greatest hero. My mom was a woman that the world should have known. And they do know her through me.
Venus and Serena have dominated women's tennis,
And they yet dominate
for
tennis.
more than a decade. Beyond, where are they seated now? Where Venus?
Venus is number 19, Serena's number 1.
It's incredible.
Venus could be a lot better if she wanted to. Venus just don't have time. She had to put on education and business. But no, we can't be pushed around no place. You can't push us around even from education. Venus Serena's the highest ever two educated people to play tennis ever in the history of the game. And they're the best to play sports.
What beyond, and I'll end our conversation with this, what beyond having two daughters, number 1 and number 19, at the top of the tennis world, a white-dominated sport, what is the message of your family story?
Well, we never admitted that tennis was white-dominated sports. Other people have. So we didn't see that. We seen before they were born that they were going to be number 1 and number 2. I didn't see someone dominating anything that I was going to do. My mom didn't raise me that way. Well, that's what they do. Anything they want to do, that's what they were brought up to do. And they have a lot of things that they're doing now in the line of their own businesses.
And what is your message?
My message to anyone would be always believe in yourself and never accept no as an answer. Even if the world turn against you, it doesn't mean anything. You are the world if you want to be, and live for the world, and the world will live through you.
Richard Williams, I've interviewed a lot of people. You're a remarkable person,
Thank you.
extraordinary. Thank you for coming in
It's a
today.
privilege, and thanks for having me.
Take care.
Thank you very much.